Hello, my teacher friends. I have a question for you today. Have you ever thought about teaching for Outschool? Well, guess what? Today's your day because we're talking about Outschool with a very special guest. Welcome to the Teach Joyfully podcast, where we talk about all things elementary teaching with some mom stuff thrown in. I'm Lisa Burns, a teacher success coach, veteran elementary teacher, and mom of 5. I'll be your host. Thanks for joining me today.
So now let's dive into today's conversation. I'm here with Wendy Wawrzyniak. She's been teaching for more than 31 years, from handicapped preschoolers to AP high schoolers. And right now she's a high school history teacher and an entrepreneur on Outschool as well. And she's graciously agreed to chat with me today about how to get started on Outschool and how to be successful on Outschool and start to make some money. And we'll talk more about what Outschool is in just a little bit. And while Wendy deals with high schoolers right now, her Outschool journey also applies to elementary teachers or teachers of any level. So if you've been thinking about finding a way to teach what you want and make some extra money, you're going to love this episode. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I'm glad to be here.
I am so excited too, because this is a topic that lots of teachers are interested in. I know that there's platforms that have gone away or is not as profitable as they used to be, and Outschool's kind of become a big deal, but there's some tricks to kind of getting started, and it's good to know those in advance before you try and dive in, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so first of all, not all my listeners know what Outschool is. So let's take a minute and just explain, what is Outschool?
Well, Outschool is a place where teachers can teach what they want, and students can pretty much find a class in anything that they want, and from the ages of 3 through 18. So there's all kinds of different classes, courses, options on there. Mostly parents pay to have their kids take these classes, and teachers determine their own price. So, in my world as a regular classroom teacher, but also an Outschool teacher, it removes the administration. It's basically an agreement that I have between the parents and the students, and that they have with me. And so they're my customer, and that's it's kind of it. I mean, homeschooling parents use it. Even kids who are in regular school will use it just to learn a little bit of extra about something. Parents of preschoolers will use it and have their kids learn how to cook something or how to do a little dance. Or some parents with preschoolers, they sign their kids up for circle time. So there's all kinds of different classes and types of classes on there.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can teach.
Was that a good summary?
It is. And you really can teach almost anything. So just because you're a classroom teacher doesn't mean you have to teach classroom teacher subjects. You really, if you have a hobby or a passion, you can teach that as well. There's kind of a market for almost anything, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah. You wouldn't believe some of the classes that I've seen that are offered and popular on there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen things on Harry Potter or on, basket weaving or whatever. There's been all kinds of things that I've seen on Outschool. And so I think that it's a great way to just get some enrichment too. And families and students really do enjoy that. So, yeah. All right. So is it for anyone kindergarten through preschool through 12th grade? Let me say that again. Is it for anyone preschool through 12th grade, or is it really meant for certain grade levels?
It's really for anyone from preschool through 12th grade, because there is something for everybody. When a teacher designs a class, they say, here's the age group that should be taking this class. So typically the classes that I create, I wouldn't want someone younger than maybe 12. I actually do have an 11-year-old in my class right now, but a conversation takes place with the parent that this is a high school level class. So we need to make sure, reading level is kind of up there, comprehension, that there may be a more mature student. But yeah, there is definitely something for everyone from ages 3 through 18. And even there's stuff on there for adults, but adults can't take classes. I've often said, oh my gosh, I would love to. We need an Outschool for adults.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So, regardless of what grade you're teaching, because most of my audience is really in that K5, K6
Mhm.
range, there's plenty of room for them to teach what they love on there. And the cool thing is, you design your own course. And so, you really can teach what you love to teach the most and get rid of all of the stuff maybe you don't love to teach as much. You really can tailor it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I know if you think about the things that you love to teach, it may not be what you're teaching in the classroom. You might love to do quilting, and so you're going to teach a bunch of, you know, fourth, fifth, sixth graders how to create a quilt out of their t-shirts. It could just be something that you do as a hobby, or something that you're just passionate about or have a lot of knowledge about. Um, when I was thinking of what classes to teach, I looked and to see what kinds of classes there were, not to steal the ideas, but to see maybe what was lacking that I could maybe fill a gap with the skills and interests that I have.
Right, right. And that's actually a really good idea. Absolutely. Because it can help you gain some ideas on what it is that you might want to teach that people might be interested in as well. Okay, so you teach AP high school history right now, is that right? Or you teach just high school history, lots of different classes?
Well,
Let me rephrase that.
okay.
What are you teaching in your regular teaching day right now?
Oh, so during the day when I'm not doing out school. Okay, so right now I am actually teaching sixth grade world history and 10th grade world history. Um,
Okay.
so it's pretty much split between those two things because I'm actually a virtual teacher right now. So I have 148 kids who I teach virtually through the public school system. So yeah, those I teach every kind of world history that there is.
Okay. So, and what do you teach on Outschool then?
On Outschool right now, I am teaching U.S. high school U.S. history, high school world history. I'm also teaching a little history class that I created called History Concepts, which helps to prepare kids to understand concepts in history, so they could be successful in a high school history class. And I kind of tailor it to the thinking skills in an AP level class. So I do, kind of drop in there. This will help prepare your child to take an AP class. Um, and those are the classes I teach live. I also teach flex classes. I don't know if we want to get into that right now too, but I have 6 flex classes that are going on at the moment as well. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so with those, it's the same classes that I teach live, but also I teach a class on world religions, just an introduction to those, and see that in the concepts class, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But every once in a
Yeah.
while, I'll throw in a time management class as well.
Wow. So you have a broad range at this point. I know you probably, when you start with just a few and you kind of build from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I started
Okay.
small, just like with one-time classes that I would teach once and be done. And now my classes are ongoing. Like I'm getting to know my kids. I see them twice a week, for 45 minutes each time. Give them homework. We review what we learned last time. I'm using all the skills I know, from being a teacher in the classroom, but doing it over Outschool.
Wow. Okay. So let's go back up just a little bit and chat about
Mhm.
applying to Outschool and that whole process. I mean, I sometimes I think it's perceived as really difficult to get accepted by Outschool because this isn't just like, oh, I'll just start on Outschool. You actually have to apply, and they don't want just junk classes on there. They really do want something that will be successful and valuable. So they do screen somewhat. So what's the process?
So there's a written component and then there's a video component to it. And justifiably so, they want to know that the people who are going to be on there teaching kids have some kind of experience either with teaching or with whatever type of course it is that they want to offer. And if they do have experience with the course that they have experience, if they do have experience in the topic that they want to teach a course in, they want to know that they're going to be able to relate with kids. Because you could find some guy who has a PhD in basket weaving, to teach a class in basket weaving, but he may not like connect with kids at all. So when you apply to Outschool, you write about your history, your resume, what you've done, what qualifies you to work with kids, what qualifies you to teach what you're applying to teach. But then you create a video where they want to see your personality. They want to see you on the video, like you in the same personality type that you would have when you're working with kids. So, I'm someone who smiles a lot. I really believe that smiling helps everybody kind of feel much more comfortable, and it's not even intentional; it just happens. But when I created my video, um, it was really just, this is me. I'm talking to the camera as though I'm talking to students, not talking to people who are judging whether or not I could be a teacher on Outschool, because I wanted them to see just what a student would get from Miss Wendy teaching them the class. So it is, it's not an easy process, but it shouldn't be, because they shouldn't just hire anybody. They should have people who want to be on there, and it's not a one and done. If you apply and you get denied, they tell you, here's what was missing, here's why you were denied. And so you can fix whatever it was and reapply. I don't think they expect anybody to be perfect. In addition to that, though, Outschool actually has tutorials that you can go through to see exactly what it is that they want and how to do it. So if you have the desire to get on Outschool and you're willing to put in a few hours of time, you absolutely can and should apply. It's totally worth it. Just because once you apply, you then can pretty much um, teach any class that you want to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you've applied, you've been accepted. What happens from there? You need to develop your course. What happened from there for you?
So I developed my course, and like I said, the first class I taught was it was a one-time. I forget if I did like 45 minutes or an hour, but it was like a one-time class on one subject that I had taught in my world history class, and I had 2 kids who signed up for it. But so you develop it, and I had pretty much as soon as I was accepted as a teacher, I went onto Facebook and I joined a couple of Outschool Facebook groups, and I got a lot of advice from people on there. Um, and so what people had said was, even though most of the time you're going to set your class minimum at 3 students, if you only have 1 student, teach the class. Get the reps, get the chance to try it out, see what works, see what doesn't work, maybe hope for a good review. And so that's what I did for a long time. For the whole summer of 2020, I taught like 1-person classes. And I'd be like, oh boy, I just made $5 for that hour. But I knew that I was getting the experience that I needed, and it was helping my numbers in terms of, okay, she's taught this many classes, she's taught this many students. Um, for example, one of the early classes that I taught that I still teach from time to time is time management, and a month into teaching it, I got a 1-star review, my only 1-star review, and the parent said that she thought that I taught too fast. And that was like a private review to me, like it felt rushed. I'm like, well, that's really good feedback for me, because I feel like I'm rushing when I teach it to fit it in that 1-hour time period. So I'm like, here's an idea. I'm going to break that into 4 classes that meet once a week for 4 weeks. And that way we can slow it down and check in each week. How did you do last week on logging your time? And then the next week, how did you do on creating a schedule and prioritizing the things on your schedule? So I was able to slow it down and learn from that feedback. So anyway, I got my start with just doing like single classes. And then once I started to feel more comfortable and get a few more kids signed up, then I was like, well, I'm going to try a 4-session class, or I'm going to try a class that lasts, the religion class, the world religion class that I taught. That's um, a 5-session class. And then eventually it went to an 18-session class that I had 2 times a week for a half an hour for 9 weeks. So I kind of like just worked my way into what I felt comfortable with. I would never suggest that somebody just jumps in completely like, I'm going to teach 4 classes a week to, like just take it slow to begin with, to get comfortable with it and to know what works and what doesn't work. Even right now, I'm sort of pushing my limits. I'm teaching live for 4 hours a week on top of my regular job. But just with the prep time and the fact that I'm also teaching 6 flex classes that I have to prepare for, it's a lot. So should I address what a flex class is?
Yeah, I mean, you can say, well, just your online, my Flex is just my online teaching with the public school.
No, it's actually with Outschool.
Oh, it's actually with Outschool. Oh, no. Okay. I didn't know they had that. Okay. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. So Outschool also has these flex class possibilities where you create classes that you never actually meet face to face with for the kids. I create videos for each week, and they go on and watch the videos, and then I have activities for them to do to show that they're learning the material. And Outschool also wants, when you create a flex class, they want you to give the students in that class a chance to interact. So like I'll use something like Flipgrid for them to make little videos of and interact with each other. Right now, my flex classes don't have a real high enrollment. I might get one a week. However, what happens is, or not, I might get one per class. But what happens is, once I've created the videos for the classes, all I have to do is put in about a half an hour at the most of prep time to upload those videos and interact with those kids and give them feedback on the assignments that they've done. So it requires a whole lot less work. You charge a little bit less money because you're not meeting face to face each week, but it's a nice little alternative. So I've turned most of the classes that I teach live into flex classes as well. So both of those are totally options. And you can do, there are even flex classes for little kids where you're creating the video, you're maybe giving the parent like a list of here's what you can do with your kid for the week. The flex classes aren't as popular as the live classes. I think I saw that like 10% of all enrollments are flex classes, whereas 90% are live classes.
Sure. And I understand that. But I think especially for homeschoolers, that flex class might be a nice option for them to fit in something different or get a little more support or something like that, as opposed to having to be live at a specific time during their day when maybe their day is already packed or they have other little kids at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I have an AP review class that I've turned into a flex class. So a lot of those AP students are super busy. Their schedules are packed. And so I create the little flex class so they can go on at their convenience. They're still writing essays and I'm still giving them feedback on those essays, but they don't have to be on Outschool at a specific time and place.
Right. And it's less time for you and you've already created the material. So you're just doubling down on the same material, which is really actually very efficient and a smart way to do, gain some extra money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So you're saying when you really start with one-off classes, start slow, really take the feedback to heart. And it sounds to me like what you're doing is you're building up your reviews, you're getting feedback, you're refining your technique and figuring out what you want to teach. Do I enjoy teaching this? This is working out for me. And two, because maybe you're not like all of a sudden it's like in this format, I'm not really liking this. So you won't offer it again.
Right.
But I think it's also that you're trying to figure out what are people signing up for? Is this something they're interested in? So you're kind of testing the waters on lots of levels of, figuring that out and then figuring out, how best to teach it too.
Yeah, exactly. And the very first class I taught was a 1-hour class on Napoleon. And I love teaching about Napoleon in the world history classroom in person, but for whatever reason, it didn't translate well on Outschool. So I think I taught it twice and I was like, you know what? I'm not really enjoying this at all. And I feel like I'm boring these kids and I know I could do better with other things. So that Napoleon class just kind of like hasn't been offered in quite some time.
Well, sometimes you have a flop and that's okay. Even as a teacher, sometimes in a regular classroom, you're always reevaluating, right? And you're like, that didn't go over well. I need to either change it or get rid of it, right? And we do that as good teachers anyway. That's just what you do.
Yeah. Reflective practice.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So how long did it take for you to actually get students signing up, even just one-offs? Did you get students right away? Was there kind of a period of time where you really weren't getting anything? once you put classes up?
Once I put them up, I got a lot of one kid classes for the first few months. And I feel like it took a good, I'm keeping in mind that I wasn't teaching a ton of classes. It was only a few, maybe a week, maybe 6 to 8 months before I got classes that I felt were being profitable, that I felt, oh my gosh, I have more than 3 kids in this class. Yay. And now I'm teaching classes of 9 and 7 and 4 live every week. So that to me is, and I think I kind of like tapped into that homeschooler niche with the regular curriculum type classes. But the other popular class that I taught last spring was AP review classes. It was the right time and right place for a lot of those kids, and those classes were nice and full. And I was getting a lot of parents saying, "Can you teach this more?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have time." So, and that's a nice problem to have. So, but yeah, it took quite a few months of just hanging in there and knowing that all the efforts I was putting in would pay off at some point in time. And now I feel like absolutely that it's a nice side hustle at this point.
So I know that some teachers struggle to get established in the system, and you're saying that really does take a while. But when you look at it, you're an entrepreneur. This is what this is. And no one, almost no one, is an overnight success as an entrepreneur. And so if you're looking at it from the entrepreneur's perspective, this is actually not a long time for a business to take off. 6 months is not a long time for a business to take off. Most people who are entrepreneurs, it can take longer than that sometimes for a business to take off. And so when you put it in those terms, I know it seems like a long time, but it actually, you're making a little money and you're investing for a longer term.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back, in the moment, it felt like, oh my gosh, is this even worth my time? And now looking back at the big picture, I'm like, of course it was worth my time. It was worth every moment of my time. And even still right now, because I do feel like it's sometimes I'm like, oh, my Mondays and Wednesdays are just crazy days. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it, because if you work hard, you get to play hard. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So is there any other little tips or anything else that actually, let's do it this way. Let's talk about, some, I have it. I'm looking at it thinking, I don't want to reword it that way. I'm really wanting this kind of like, what's like 4, 5, 6 steps you would take if you were going to start now with Outschool. What would you say? Make sure you do these things, right? Other than apply, right? You're going to apply, really stick with it. But then what would you say? If you were going to give someone advice right now to say, you're going to start Outschool, what advice would you give them? What 4, 5, 6 pieces of advice do you think are really important to know?
definitely get on the Facebook support groups, the Outschool Teacher Hub, the Outschool Teacher pages. There's some that are like official Outschool pages, and there's some that are unofficial. Get on all of them and read what people have to say. They're not always going to be in agreement, but at least you'll be getting different pieces of advice. That's where I probably learned the most in terms of being patient and waiting and teaching to classes of one. In addition to that, look around on Outschool, and if you figured out what types of classes do you think you want to teach, look and see who else might be teaching them. Is it an oversaturated market, or is it something that maybe there's a desire for? Also, think about the age group that you want to teach and what they need or want that you can provide. That's where my time management class came from. Because ultimately, we're not teachers of content, we're teachers of students. And if we want to help them be better people, better students, maybe there's skills that they need that you can help to provide. So, kind of think like a little bit outside of the box. Don't just think, well, I'm a reading teacher, so I'm going to teach a reading class. Well, but what else do students need that might help them to be better readers or better writers, or think that, or just better students in general? Are you good at teaching certain strategies, context clue, whatever it might be? Maybe try to niche down not just a reading class, but teaching kids how to use various strategies, whatever that might be. So to me, it's really a matter of get those wheels spinning and think, what problem can I fix? Or what problem can I solve? Was that enough? Was that
Right.
4 or 5?
I think that actually that's perfect, because really what we're talking about is it is niching down. You're getting to the point where, yes, there's a lot out there who are teaching reading, to first graders or whatever, kindergarten, first grade. So you might have a lot of teachers that are teaching kindergarten, first graders reading, but if you can narrow it down to specific skills that kids tend to struggle with, that becomes a much more desirable piece, because you have a lot of people who their kids are struggling in reading and they're getting reading instruction in school or reading instruction at homeschooling, but they're really kind of struggling. And this is the piece that the kids tend to struggle with. And that one piece, or that, 2, 3 pieces, if you can teach that very specifically, you're solving that problem. And that's very specific. And that's what people want.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes you different. And that makes you stand out. So now, does Outschool help you with what people are asking for or looking for? I know that they do have people who request courses.
Yeah. So just with Outschool, they send out, once you're approved as a teacher, they send out emails every week. Oh, and when you go to sign up for Outschool, the first thing you have to do is sign up as a parent. It doesn't make any sense, unless they've changed that. But when I first signed up, it was like, well, my kids are too old for this, but I'm going to have a fictitious child in the age group that I want to teach. So I would see what parents would be getting. So there's another suggestion. If you have to sign up as a parent, sign up as a parent of a student in the age group that you're going to be teaching, because then you'll see what the parents are getting. So I get emails that are directed to parents and emails that are directed to teachers. The parent emails will say, here's all these new classes that are being offered in these different areas. The teacher emails say, here's the top 10 list of most searched topics that didn't return a lot of results. So, like Roboblocks or TikTok dances, or, so you get a sense of, and they break it down by age group. So you can look and see, okay, I want to teach, 7 to 9-year-olds. What are parents of 7 to 9-year-olds looking for on Outschool? So that's also another place where you can look for ideas for, for course creation.
And I think that's awesome, because they're giving you a lot of support and a lot of help to help you be successful. Their goal isn't that you just sign up. They really want you to be successful, because they make some money off of every course that you sell as well. And so the more you sell, the more they make as well. So yeah, that's an important piece.
They make 30% of every class, but that, you price your class in a way that it's like you take that into account. Also, Outschool has started offering professional development opportunities that's geared a lot towards people who are not your traditional teacher necessarily, who don't really know how to structure a class. But they're definitely expanding the support that they're providing for all of their instructors, which is really great to see. I mean, as they become more popular, they are putting in a lot of supports for both teachers and for students.
Yeah. Well, and that's a natural outgrowth of being successful, isn't it? They just add all these pieces in. It's like, oh, we're lacking here, because they want to offer quality product, and that's why it takes some time to like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you join the Facebook groups, you're looking at all these emails to see what people are asking for, what's being offered. You're going in and kind of seeing what's being offered as well, and figuring out where the holes are. You're also thinking about what you love to teach. You've kind of got all these little things going on, and then you figure out your course and you get it all set up and everything. And then, do you do any advertising or anything like that? I mean, when you think about, you decide you're offering something unique, but like Facebook or social media or anything like that, are you doing anything that even just like posts?
Yeah, early on, I did a lot of promoted or posts on Facebook. I probably put stuff on my social media also, but I did the paid ads or whatever, and I didn't really see much return on that investment. But one of the things that Outschool has been doing is they will promote certain classes. They do all of that, however the algorithms work, they know whatever groups of people might be interested in certain kinds of classes. So if people have been searching on U.S. history, they might see an ad for my U.S. history class on Facebook. So that's part of your 30%. It actually, the 30% that Outschool gets is part of it is going towards their advertising budget, which is nice to see. But yeah, when I first started doing Facebook ads, I was trying to come up with, the ideal demographic. Who am I trying to tap into? Who do I want to see these ads? And it was like, well, it's probably the parents more so than the kids, because I was doing the time management class, especially. I'm like, we're in the pandemic. All kinds of kids are home. They're procrastinating. They're not getting their work done. They need to know how to do time management. And I feel like more kids found my class because their parents were searching on Outschool than because of the ads that I put on Facebook and Instagram. So
Sure. Well, and honestly, I would expect that Facebook ads are really a tough thing to do well, and you actually have to invest quite a bit more money than you used to. And so that's not something that I would highly recommend. Sorry, it's not something that I'd actually highly recommend. I guess I was thinking more like Instagram, picking the right hashtags like homeschoolers, things like that, putting a few posts up or doing a story or something like that. I just didn't know if you had tested any of that out as far as, targeting specifics on some of those kinds of things, just to see if you kind of got some results and anything from that. But, it's worth trying if you're on Outschool, and once you're there, if you have hashtags that you found that you think would apply, then I think it's worth at least giving it a shot. It's harder to do on, right. And I think it's harder to do on Facebook unless you're in Facebook groups for homeschoolers and things like that, but you don't want to really advertise there. That's always a tough line to walk, so, it's always kind of hard to figure that out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So definitely, offering something unique is absolutely a great strategy. And then, as you said, be patient with the process and really be willing to teach to one student. It's the same thing when I talk about, becoming a speaker, a presenter, or anything else. You got to be okay with speaking to an audience of one sometimes, because you're getting your chops, and you're building your name, and it can take a little while. And it's the same thing on Outschool or any other platform. It just takes a little bit of time. And if you're willing to invest the time, if you're looking at this as a long-term plan, not a short-term plan, then I think it's worth your time. It certainly isn't oh my gosh, I'm going to go in there and make all this money right away. If you go in with that attitude, you're going to be very disappointed and frustrated.
Yeah, it's funny because the thing that really attracted me to it at first was I was seeing people post things like, I'm making $3,000 a month. I'm making $5,000 a month. I'm like, really? Oh my goodness. And it became apparent pretty early on that, especially with my age group, people do better with younger kids. So your audience will love to hear that. But with my age group, that it's a real tough age group to really do well in. And I don't know that I could like give up my regular teaching job and do it, but I've heard of people who have. So it's just, I think it's more the exception than the rule.
Right. And it might be, but it's hard to know, isn't it? Until you get out there and really try. I think once you really start to build a name for yourself and really get the reviews and have been doing it for a year or more, I think that's when the money starts to really come in. If you're really being successful, I think that's when you actually get to the point where you have enough kids taking your courses that you can really build that kind of a business. But it does take time. You have to be patient with it and be willing to be patient with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. So where can teachers find you if they're, wanting to see what you're doing? Where can they find you? Do you have a website or?
I do. My website is called The World Is Your Classroom, all one big long word. The World Is Your Classroom.net. Or you can find me on Instagram at World's Your Classroom. That's it. In this case, there's no is. It's just World's Your Classroom on Instagram. But if they want to get a hold of me and they go to my website, there's a contact us page on there with my email, my phone number, and a contact us form that you could fill out. So any one of those, or DM me on Instagram.
Well, and it's always nice to have someone to say, hey, okay, so I'm struggling with this piece, and to give you that reality check a little bit and say, it's really okay. You're doing a good job. You just need to hang in there or change this piece. It can be a hard thing to get started on some of these things. I know no matter what it is you're doing as a business, it's always so nice to have somebody that you can go back and say, okay, where are things at? Am I on the right track here?
Yeah, happy to help.
All right. Wonderful. Well, Wendy, it's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And we're hopefully teachers find this valuable. And if they've been thinking about Outschool or something like that, that they can feel like they can go and at least dive in and know what they're in for.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Lisa. I've enjoyed talking to you. And I wish any of your listeners the best of luck in starting their Outschool journey, and contact me if you have questions.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's it, my teacher friends. We are out of time and I'm out of breath. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you like today's conversation, I'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcast or wherever you listen and leave a review. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Also, you can continue the conversation online with me in my Facebook group, the Teach Joyfully podcast community, where elementary teachers can connect, get help, and encouragement for all kinds of education and parenting topics. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in today's episode on my website at www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. And remember, a happy teacher is a good teacher. Until next time, teach joyfully and take care of you.